Hello again, everyone. I have news, all relating to the Kaiju League. Not one, not two, but three battle reports are going to be covered in today's video, all relating to the league. These are all going to be games that my little halflings have participated in over the past couple of weekends, but I also will be presenting some stat sheets and everything covering the progress that the other players in the league have made so far. You'll notice that there are two players particular, the Wood Elf player on the Team Ghidorah team and the Undead Von Karstein list on the Ghidorah team. Both those players, unfortunately, have been away on vacation for the holiday and are going to have to take a couple of buys, basically, to catch them up to everyone else. I think basically both of them are going to be missing 3 games. So, yeah, if you're wondering why there's a couple of players coming up short on the stat sheet here, that is your reason why. Well, as you can see, the halflings are not doing that bad at all. I don't know if that's just because of the team I'm on, and I've had some good matchups in terms of what I'm facing, or just like the people that I'm cooperating with during the 2v2 or like the mega battle games. But yeah, I've just been having a lot of luck, and even when I get matched up against like my own team players, which it happens sometimes. We have an odd number of players. I've even been doing pretty good against my own team here. Bit of a spoiler alert because the first battle report is going to be the Halflings versus the Empire, aka the Mud Dogs. This is just going to be a quick little one, which is why I didn't really mind spoiling it. I only took a couple of photos of this battle, and we kind of just had to get this one in before everyone started to arrive and the mega battle began. So, yeah, this was the Mud Dogs versus the Knights of the Waffle House. I think at this stage, we're both looking at about 1,000 points in our army. He might have been a little bit under me, like 900. So for this battle, turn one went to the Empire, and he had some good vanguard maneuvers. He was able to get his outriders and the other guys. I don't remember what they're called that have the repeater guns, but they're similar to the outriders. Got both of those units up on my flank pretty quick in this game, like right on turn one, taking volleys into my sticky arrow Rufus Shortwick archer unit on the far flank there by the chapel, the unit that's on the hill there. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get reduced down to like 8 guys, maybe 6 guys or something like that. I'm going to lose like almost half of the unit on this volley. They do pass the leadership test, and I have like the little pantry cart nearby, which counts as your BSB, so you get a reroll, and halflings have pretty good leadership. My general's near there as well. So I'm not too surprised they didn't flee, but I was surprised at the amount of casualties. Granted, we are toughness too, but yeah, he had a really good opening volley on me. I think his crossbow unit that's in the very, very far back there also took a couple of volley shots at my other archer unit and managed to whittle a couple of them down. I've already given a bit of a spoiler on this game, so I don't mind saying it now. But yeah, he is going to whittle down both of my archer units just pretty much down to the last man or completely kill them off here in this game. They really get focused fired. However, when it comes to my turn, the remaining archers that are still alive do retaliate pretty effectively. I take out all but one of his pistoliers, and I think the other guys are what are called the outriders, the guys with the guns there. They ride up to the fence and try to take a defensive position, but my archers move up, manage to just get a really lucky volley in, and I think I finish off all of them. So pretty much he's only got like one pistolier left at the end of turn one, turn two. So pretty effective shooting from both sides for their opening volley, you could say. I did feel like he had a bit of an advantage on the first couple of turns, though, looking at the casualty pool there. Definitely think I've lost a few more guys than him. The Halfling Hot Pot shot a couple of salvos off during the game, but really was not doing too much, unfortunately. You'll notice I took a steam tank, and that will do a little bit of damage this game, but really my heavy hitters are going to just be my archers and my pantry guard, I would say, for this battle. His halberdier unit with all of the characters is slowly moving up the board. There is an objective, one of the kaiju power crystals, and I believe a treasure chest, right in the dead center of the board where that road's going. The unit's going to stop and pick up that objective, which will slow them down a little bit and give me probably like one extra turn of shooting at them. But I mean, it's a hardy unit, and I can understand his thought process as to doing it. The crystals are worth, I think, 150 or 200 victory points for each one you gather. So if he's able to hold on to that unit, like keep them alive and the objective, it's probably going to be a net positive for him, but we'll have to see if that happens. So, as the battle continues on, his units kind of advance forward to getting to a comfortable range, start shooting at me. I'm doing the same thing, advancing forward, because I also have a short range, and yeah, volleys are kind of exchanged on each other. I move my steam tank up, as you can see in the picture here, to a little bit of a risky spot. I wanted to try to take the charge off the pantry guard and block some shots from his crossbowmen behind him. And I managed to just get really, really lucky. He got all of his battle prayers off. We tested it afterwards. He just rolled really bad, and I just happened to get lucky on my dice. He did not kill the steam tank. It was left lingering on one wound. We tested it afterwards. The exact same dice, exact same setup. He killed it in that scenario, but unfortunately, when it came to the actual game, the dice were not on the Empire's side. And after he failed to kill the steam tank, the pantry guard charged into the flank of the halberdier unit. Granted, he did kill a couple of my guys before I was able to swing, because we've all got great weapons, but yeah, unfortunately, the mud dogs were cut down in those final moments there, and it was a victory for the Knights of the Waffle House. You know, when we're both playing against each other and we're on the same team in the league, there's really no winners in these situations. But we got players, unfortunately, on vacation, and as I've already mentioned, an uneven amount of players. So, gotta make the best with what we can do. And yeah, I still think it was a fun little match. We talked about it afterwards. Each of us had a very high casualty pool after it all, and there was some interesting results rolled actually on the injury table. I recall him rolling the captured result on his warrior priest. Turns out my halflings after the battle took his warrior priest captive, but because we were on the same team, I didn't really want to be extortionate about ransoming her back. I think I gave the priest back for 35 gold crowns or something like that. So you could say we're a little greedy, but I still think that was a pretty fair price. He was telling me the warrior priest without gear is like 70 crowns or something like that. So, and she's got some XP on her, so she's got a little bit extra value. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And other than that, really not too much on our injury results, and it was just kind of a good game. Unfortunately, I didn't grab much of the treasure or objectives that we had on the board. He kind of snatched all those up, but then he had to abandon them when he fled during the final turn. So neither of us came up with much extra loot, just kind of a standard battle. So as I already mentioned, that was going to be a bit of a quicker battle report, and I didn't mind spoiling that in my little result page there. But what I don't have on the result page there is this mega battle, which involves all the players other than the two I already mentioned are on vacation right now. And what ended up happening was, yeah, there's basically only one player on the Ghidorah team because of the two missing players, and then all of the people on the Godzilla team are here and ready to go. So what we had happen was one of our players on the Godzilla team was feeling a bit sporting and gentlemanly. It was the Wood Elf player, if you were curious. Said, I will play with Team Ghidorah for this mega battle so he doesn't have to just command a giant army all on his own and play against four players. And I think that was quite a kind thing to do. But even with the extra player, they are obviously still going to be down a couple of points. I mentioned this in my last battle report video for the Kaiju League, but for anyone that didn't bother watching, when we do the mega battles, there is probably going to be these point indifferences due to the way that your armies progress in the campaign. There's some randomness in the gold that's being gathered. So what we do is we take the total of the side that has the larger force, which is going to be the Godzilla team this time around. And whatever the difference is between our team and the opposing side, they'll get that many points in reinforcements. And that is also why it was so nice to have the Wood Elf player over there. Because, yeah, it would have been a balanced game if it was just that one player against all of us. We would have given him, all the points he needed to compensate for that. But that's a lot to command. And, it also is just going to kind of stall up the game, having one person having to roll like for basically four little separate interactions and stuff that are probably happening across the battlefield between the players. So, really kind to have this happen, and I think everything kind of worked out well. It also kind of works out because they already had a Wood Elf player on their side, giving a bit of a range superiority advantage to them. So I think having our Wood Elf player fight for them with all of his range advantages will be something that they're already kind of used to. If you're curious what the players on the Ghidorah team are going to take for reinforcements, it is mostly Warriors of Chaos. We happen to have a Chaos army here. The player that plays Orcs and Goblins, the Black Orcs of the Crag, sorry, I don't have their actual faction or clan name like in front of me here, but yeah, basically he actually is a Warrior of Chaos player and just starting this army, so he kind of felt a little bit more comfortable taking on additional points in Chaos Warriors. We also just didn't have like another 2,000 or 1,000 points of orcs, however much he needed there. So, yeah, we gave him a Warriors of Chaos army. This is an army that I have. I'm actually putting it on sale on my website right now, but it's just sitting there collecting dust at the moment. So I figure why not get it on the battlefield and see how it does. And it's got a bit of a Zinch theme. He's got about 10 Chaos Knights, 20 Warriors of Chaos, a couple of Marauders. Those are just being proxied. Unfortunately, we didn't have any Marauders on us, but one of them's got additional hand weapons, the other one's got great weapons, and I think that is about it for their reinforcements. Additionally, the Orcs and Goblins player has been taking some Doom Divers with his additional points. I think he's got at least two of them in this battle, and they will be raining hell down on the Godzilla side of the battlefield during this game. So, yeah, going to be an interesting battle, and let's get the report started. So as you can see from the image here, we've got the Team Ghidorah on the left and the Team Godzilla on the right. What are the massive kaiju beasts that are showing up for this battle, you might be asking? Fighting for Team Ghidorah is the legendary spider known as Kumonga! And fighting for Godzilla is an equally legendary dragon that goes by the name of Rodan. Both of these monsters are going to be using a already kind of made stat line from the traditional Warhammer Fantasy rulebook. Kumonga is going to be using an Arachnarok spider profile, but he's going to have, just as an example, +1 toughness, +1 strength, and probably +2 wounds. And Rodan will be using the Greater Fire Dragon profile from the big rulebook. However, again, he'll probably have an extra armor save and a couple of extra abilities. What are those extra abilities? I kind of already mentioned this in a prior battle report, but these big monsters that are kind of showing up are little teasers to the main event that'll be occurring on the final battle. All have unique kaiju moves to them. And if you want to use one of those, you have to use one of the power crystals that you've gathered during the game. And these are all watered down move sets that your kaiju, like your main one that you're fighting for, either Ghidorah or Godzilla, are going to have in the final battle. There are a couple of unique ones. For example, Kumonga has a super like web spinning attack that can pin a unit down, or like an acid silk ability, I believe, for this battle. And I don't think Ghidorah is going to be having that during his game. But for the most part, they're here to give you a little bit of a taste of how the big mega kaiju are going to work in the final battle. And yeah, as you can see, theirs is kind of set up in the middle position. Ours is set up in the bottom right of the battlefield. The final thing I want to cover on the deployment of this battlefield is I'm going to be taking a bit of a center position on this battlefield. Most of my mainline halfling units are going to be in between these two watchtowers that you can see here in the photo. I will have a couple of ranged units that are going to be helping out in the bottom. The very bottom of the board is going to actually be like a bit of a contribution pool. I'm going to have one or two archer units helping out down there. The Empire player is going to have his Outriders and maybe one other unit positioned down there as well. And the Lizardman player on our side is going to have his Salamander providing some fire support down there too. But for the most part, everyone else's army is going to be kind of sticking together here. I'm going to be watching this middle area. Right above me is the Empire with most of their infantry and ranged units. And then above them is the main block of the Lizardmen, the Saurus, and the Temple Guard. We're not exactly matching up with like a whole army of one of these players against us, but if I had to say where the opposing side's armies are focused, I would say their mercenary Chaos Warrior units are positioned in the center of the battlefield to kind of match against the halflings. The orcs and goblins have majority of their forces on the top side with the wood elves, but both of those players have kind of done something that we did and contributed a unit or two to the very bottom side to match our motley crew mix of units as well. So when we get to turn one, not too much happens. Before that, everyone does their little vanguard and scouting maneuvers, gets a little bit closer. You'll notice my steam tank, of all things, got it's called Quick Thinker in our league. It's a level up, and it gives it basically an 8-inch vanguard maneuver. So I had my steam tank kind of spearheading the assault on the middle there. But yeah, turn one, not too much really happens. Some shooting attacks are exchanged by both sides. Casualties are definitely taken, but no units are really put into too bad a position at the end of turn one. Minus my steam tank. Either on the first turn or the second turn, the Wood Elf player will cast the Withering on my Steam Tank, and it'll reduce my toughness by 2. We are unable to dispel it, unfortunately. I think we do get rid of it when it comes back to our turn, but yeah, they have it during their turn, and what he does is use his archers afterwards to light up the tank with a bunch of arrows. They have true flight arrows, so they don't get any minuses, and they're only strength 3, but my tank, which was normally toughness 6, is now only toughness 4, and he's wounding me on 5s. I still have a pretty good armor save, but yeah, that combo of the shooting attack and the withering, it at least did 2 wounds to the tank. It might have done more than that. I remember it was pretty nasty. Other than that, everyone's moving up, and we'll get along to turn 2. Turn 2, the Chaos Knights look like they're going to be facing up against me in the middle. Rodan decides to kind of spearhead in front of my Pantry Guard and the main Halfling line, and perhaps face the Chaos Knights before they get a chance to go into the Pantry Guard. We'll see. Other than that, in the lower area of the battlefield where we have our motley crew mix, the Orcs and Goblin player has his biggins down there. They start moving up, and they're taking a good amount of arrow fire. The Treekin are also moving up, but we have a Salamander down there. Turn 1, the Salamander managed to get a flame attack on the Treekin, making them vulnerable to all of our other range attacks, but we really didn't do much. We either killed one Treekin or did 2 wounds to them. But this was enough firepower, basically, to kind of make them hesitate in their advance. The Biggins move up cautiously, but the Treekin are unable to fit between them, and they don't seem to want to reform. So there's a bit of stalling up happening on that lower side now. Additionally, the Biggins have a power crystal in front of them, and they are incredibly tempted to pick them up. And I mentioned this earlier in the video, during the last battle report part that I did. But when you pick those up, you can't really charge or march afterwards, so it's only going to further delay them in that southern area of the board. Up north, we have the Lizardmen and Empire fighting off against some Chaos Warriors and the main Black Orc unit. The Shooting attacks are effective, but their magic is also kind of effective and the range that they have up there. Wouldn't say either side's really gaining an advantage until we start talking about the Doom Divers. This is going to be a bit of a spoiler. It doesn't really affect anything at the game per se, but the Orcs and Goblin player will I don't I don't think he misses a single shot with either of his Doom Divers this entire game. I might be over exaggerating. He maybe misses one or two, but it's pretty much nonstop direct hits or just barely off, and the autocorrect feature of the Doom Diver will fix it. And yeah, it is pretty devastating. Lizardmen are expensive, but a quality unit, like specifically Saurus Warriors and Temple Guard. And it'll be nonstop barraging from the Doom Divers on pretty much the Lizardmen Saurus Warrior units and a couple of Doom Diver shots on my Steam Tank as well. I do get a little bit lucky with those ones. He doesn't roll amazing results. He does hit it, of course, because he's just so dang lucky with that thing during this game. Both of those things during this game. But yeah, he does deal a couple of extra wounds to my Steam Tank with the Doom Divers as well. Just absolute ace goblin artillery during the whole course of this mega battle. The final thing that I will mention, because it'll lead right into turn 3, is both of us decided to activate our Kaiju's range attack options. So for Rodan, he's got a beam attack that's kind of similar to Godzilla, a little bit less strength, and the width of the beam attack is a little bit less than Godzilla's. And Kumunga has a acid silk kind of beam attack. It's not a beam attack, but it like shoots in a straight line with a 2-inch width, I believe. And it's basically going to hit every single unit along that line. It'll do extra damage to Rodan. And yeah, at the start of each of our turns, those like the following turn, we declared it at the start of turn 2, and then at the start of turn 3, after we do our rallies, that will be the first thing that we're going to do with each of our big monsters. And even though Kumunga goes second, I'm just going to go over what each of them did. Rodan, I would say, had the better result. His beam attack is a direct hit on Kumunga, and it does, I believe, 2, possibly 3 wounds to him. Not bad. He's got 8 or 9, no, sorry, he's got 9 wounds total, so that's a good start. Additionally, it does actually extend out and manage to hit some of the Wood Elf archers behind, but unfortunately, Wood Elves are very quick, they have a great initiative, and they're able to dodge the beam attack, luckily. He also deployed them, which is kind of typical, in a thin line for archer units, so we really weren't hitting that many of them, but we got the damage where it counted. When Kumunga does his acid silk attack, it unfortunately misses Rodan. Rodan's a little too quick and is able to dodge it. However, it has a thicker line, like I mentioned, like it has a 2-inch kind of cannonball line, and it's going to hit every single unit under that. And it's able to get, I want to say, at least 6, maybe 8 of my halflings along the line, and they are just melted in a acid silk. So not terrible. I mean, they did get casualties out of it, but we were, I would argue, a little bit more fortunate in that situation when we had Rodan dodge the attack and Kumunga was not able to keep up with Rodan's beam attack. The other big thing to note that occurred during this turn, and I think it was pretty clever, but I don't really know necessarily about the matchup, was the Chaos Knights decided not to charge Rodan. Instead, they charged around him into my pantry guard. On paper, I think this is clever, and it makes sense why you would do it. They definitely have the better stat line. I have great weapons. You're going to get a chance to deal a lot of damage before I swing back. But I think you need to look at the other half of the paper. Those pantry guard in the front rank are frenzied with 2 attacks. They have strength 6. They get +2 strength for the great weapon, and their magical banner not only gives them frenzy, but +1 strength. It's an incredibly powerful banner. You can only have one in the army. It's called the honeycomb banner. But yeah, and then I also have two characters in there, front rank, with great weapons, and I might also have a halfling thief. Oh no, actually, I don't have the halfling thief here, but yeah, two characters, and then a bunch of frenzy pantry guard. Unless you kill all that unit, I don't know about the retaliating blows. I think that's just enough strength to really chop down a Chaos Knight unit. Even though they do have, like, the Zinch invulnerable save, I would be a little bit nervous about that combat. But he decides to do it. I also did put my steam tank kind of off to the side, hoping he might charge over there. And to be honest, that might not have actually been a bad idea. The steam tank was already wounded. He had a pretty good chance of finishing it off with that night block. But if he did that, he would have been forced to kind of reform afterwards. And who knows, maybe I would have gone a long bomb charge on him, or one of the other units where the Empire's position further up north would have gone to charge on him. Other than that, we have the Lizardmen continuing to get whittled down by non-stop Doom Diver artillery. Seriously, at this point, I think their Temple Guard are reduced to half their numbers, maybe a third before they even get to see combat. It is brutal. The southern side, I already kind of mentioned, is going to continue to be delayed because I think it's either at the end of turn 2 or turn 3 he picks up that crystal, which just means they're going to be stuck there for another turn, and the treekin are again continuing to be stalled up behind them. They aren't taking many losses from shooting attacks on the plus side. The goblins are going to move up, deploy some fanatics. One of them peels right through the halberdier unit, getting the maximum results possible. I think he takes out a whole rank of halberdiers. Pretty savage blow. Other one lands a little bit short, and I think he will ultimately just scatter into the watchtower or something and just die. But yeah, not a bad result from the fanatics. When we do get to the close combat between the Pantry Guard and the Knights, it kind of goes as expected. They are able to kill, I think, 4 or 5 of the Pantry Guard, and the retaliating blows are savage. I'm not 100% sure if the whole unit is cleaved down, but if they aren't, I think only 1 or 2 of the Knights survive. To be fair, he did lose 2 of them prior to the charge, one from a random shooting attack. It was either the hot pot or the steam tank's gun, or one of my archer units managed to pick off one of them. And then the stand and shoot reaction that my leader has, he's got a magic bow, managed to kill another one right before the combat. So he only had 8 Chaos Knights, but still, it was not a good exchange. 5 Pantry Guard for 8 Chaos Knights is pretty rough. Before they went down, I will say they did absorb an entire turn, possibly 2, of halfling shooting, and only lose 1 guy prior to the stand and shoot action. So, you can be proud of that. They did pass a bucket load of armor saves. Also up north, the Eternal Guard clash with our poorly proxied skink units. You can kind of see, I think it's just a motley crew of peasants and Empire guys there. But yeah, about 10 skinks get caught by the Eternal Guard, and to add a bit of roughness to the situation, I believe the skink priest was attached to the unit, or he's positioned behind the unit. And yeah, they're going to lose that combat. And I do believe they managed to flee away and live to tell another tale for at least another turn or 2 here, but it's definitely not a good situation, and he lost skinks, and I don't think he'll be able to cast magic next turn. Maybe he will. Can't quite remember the rules on that one off the top of my head. It will either be during the end of turn 3 or the start of turn 4, but the Chaos Warriors are going to get in combat with the Empire Halberdiers. Believe he's able to get at least one of his blessings off during the combat. That, combined with just the amount of characters they have, I've mentioned it before, they're a pretty dang hardy unit. They're going to be able to win that combat. And then the other really, really big combat for turn 3, end of turn 3 going into turn 4. We've got the Kaiju Showdown, folks. Rodan is going to get into combat with Kumunga. And the first round is rather savage. Kumunga manages to get 2 sneaky wounds through, mainly because of the poison attack ability that, spiders normally have in Warhammer. However, When we start our retaliation, Rodan's a little bit slower. When we strike back, we are able to get 4 wounds in. That combined with the other 2 or 3 that we were able to get with our beam attack, their kaiju is now on his last legs. I don't know how many exactly he's got left at this point, maybe 2 or 3. So that is kind of rough and definitely instilling a bit of confidence on our side. I would say turn 3 and turn 4, we're looking really solid in the middle, not just because of the kaiju battle, but because of the victory the halflings managed to have against the Chaos Knights. And then when you go further south, I've already kind of mentioned that the orcs and the treekin are a little bit stalled up, so that's looking pretty favorable for us at the moment. The only kind of problem area is the far north. The lizardmen are really getting shot down to the last Saurus here. The Eternal Guard got that cheeky little attack in on the Skinks. The Salamander's doing great on the south side, I should say. It managed to get 2 good breath attacks in during the game. That first one and then another one later on the Biggins. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of looking a little dire up north, if we're being honest. The Black Orcs, I believe it's at the end of turn 4, are going to finally get into combat with the Temple Guard and pretty much finish him off. It's rather unfortunate. The combat itself doesn't go too bad. I mean, the Temple Guard managed to get a couple of wounds in on him, but yeah, they just have lost so many at this point. The static combat res of the ranks that the Black Orcs have over the Temple Guard alone is kind of intimidating, and yeah, the dice rolls aren't exactly a miracle for the Lizard Men or anything, so Temple Guard are kind of finished off. The Saurus Infantry are finished off near the end of turn 4, and the north side's looking a little bit dire. But the fact that the Empire won against the Halberdiers and the Goblin unit, I think will get cleared out pretty soon as well. Kind of means we have a bit of a contingency force up there, and I'm able to push through and eventually wrap up my business in the middle and start supporting the Empire on that northern side. I believe after the Skinks fled and were caught by the Eternal Guard, or maybe it was the Skink Priest, one of them might have been able to flee through the unit of Saurus, but the Saurus infantry block does still have a few remaining. They definitely did take some Doom Diver shots, but they're going to match up with the Eternal Guard at the end of turn 4, start turn 5. And then we have the conclusion of the Kaiju Brawl. Probably a little unsurprising since Rodan's only taken maybe 3 wounds, possibly 4 at this point. I think it's more like 3. We do manage to finish off Kumunga in the end of turn 4, the start of turn 5 combat phase. Does manage to go 2 rounds in close combat and also took that beam attack. Might have done a little bit of other shooting at him from other units, but yeah, pretty much it was just a Kaiju Brawl. This one went in our favor, and you know what? The Forces of Evil, Team Ghidorah, they got the last one. I think this one was a little bit less of a landslide, though. Last time, Frankenstein just head bashed our guy straight into oblivion. At least Kumunga managed to get a good couple of wounds on Rodan before he went down. But with that fall of their kaiju, we are now free to maneuver ours however we see fit, and there's a plucky unit of archers right in front of them, some elven archers, as well as some Doom Diver artillery units set up behind the archers. So we've got some prime targets for Rodan to charge now that he's free to cause havoc across the other side of the battlefield. Some other things to make note of during this turn is the Warrior Priest is continuing to get all of the prayers off for the Halberdier unit, and they are just kind of locked in this bitter battle against the Warriors of Chaos. Apologies for not really remembering exactly how long they go for. I do remember a bit of a spoiler, like the Halberdiers do end up winning, but it might have been like a 3-round combat or so. And you can see the Halberdier unit, other than that fanatic that they got bashed in by, was pretty close to full health before they started, and they are definitely below half of their numbers by the time this fight is concluded. I lose a couple of Pantry Guard, I believe, to Elven shooting attacks this turn. Could have also been from the Boar Chariot that was in front of my unit. I charged a little bit earlier in the battle, but we do lose 2 more Pantry Guard. My halfling steam tank lines up a juicy shot on that goblin unit that isn't engaged in combat right now, and I think I'm able to melt a three, four of them, a good little chunk of them. And I also land a couple of shots on either I think it's a Chaos Marauder unit, another poor proxy, the Chaos Marauder unit behind them, and get like two of them as well. So not too bad in terms of halfling shooting this turn. Hot Pot also landed a shot, I believe, over there. Other than that, I don't have too much to report on my side. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but on this southern side of the board, the orcs and goblins the Biggins unit specifically continues to kind of be stalled up here. The treekin cannot get around them and don't want to reform into a one wide unit size, which I can kind of understand. And yeah, I asked my opponent about it, and he said, "Are you gonna flee if I charge your my dog unit? They're like a fast cav unit." And I said, "Yeah, of course, they're fast cav. They're just gonna rally after." And I think he kind of realized all these range units are a prime distance away from him, and if he tries to do a long charge, either A, he's gonna fail it, or B, it's just going to result in a stand and shoot for a charge he's not going to make. C, we're just going to rally afterwards after the flee and then take shots at him. And it just felt futile to him. And I can understand that, but I was talking to him afterwards. I really think they did just need to do like one sprint action up and maybe absorb a charge if necessary. They're pretty strong, but they're just delaying like two really strong units down there, and they really have not accomplished much other than pick up one objective. Granted, it is worth a good amount of points, but the fact that we won the Kaiju Brawl and things are kind of going positive for us, I'd say, across most of the other theaters of this battlefield means that Crystal probably will not amount to too much in the grand scheme of things. The Empire Halberdiers are finally able to punch through those Warriors of Chaos, and they either overrun into the Goblin unit behind the Chaos, the one that I lit up with my Steam tank earlier. Either they overrun into them, or they're an inch or two shy, and will get a charge off on the following turn. I don't think it'll have a huge impact on the battle, but for anyone that likes to keep track of these things, it should be noted that the Warriors of Chaos do rally on the following turn. Pretty much all of my halfling units focus their fire on the incoming Chaos Marauder units, and with their poor armor, they are pretty much reduced to just a few men. You can see them kind of in front of my steam tank there. Yeah, they did not fare too well against a full volley of the halflings. Additionally, the pantry guard are looting this little Christmas tree that we had in the middle. It was kind of a bonus objective thing. I managed to get a cool item or two that I'll roll on the charts later. After that, we decide to get back in order and reposition and finish off whatever remains up north. It's at this stage that the forces of evil are kind of weighing their odds and looking at their casualty pool. They do own actually two of the crystals on the battlefield. I was kind of shaking my finger at that one down south, but they have another one up north. It is enough victory points to kind of equal out the situation with the dragon. I think they kind of decide to linger on for one more turn, maybe play through all of turn five, and then I think they will decide to flee at the beginning of turn six. The last thing I would kind of like to make note of for their list of accomplishments before they decide to flee is the Wood Elf Archers. This also probably weighed on their conscience quite a bit. We're looking at Rodan, who is rather wounded at this stage. I think they also got a volley in on him before he was going to charge the archers. And they figured with the stand and shoot, it's a large target. You get like +1 to hit. They're in a woods. They get poison attacks during the close combat, attacking first. Like, if they could just get a couple of lucky wounds in, like maybe they could take this dragon down, and then the game would stay pretty competitive, and maybe they would even actually gain a victory point lead potentially. But unfortunately, no such luck. I think they do sneak one more wound in on the mighty dragon, but after that, he gobbles up all of the archers, and they decide to call the game there. And that will be the conclusion of our second mega battle. First one was a victory for the forces of Ghidorah. However, this second one is going to Team Godzilla. A pretty exciting mega battle, folks. I don't want to spend too much time on this video, as I already know it's going to be a little bit on the longer side here. So I'll have to save my tactical analysis of what went down here for another potential video, or I don't know, maybe we can have a conversation in the comments if you got any input you would like to give. But anyways, we've got one more battle report to cover here. Long story short, everyone is taking a break until like the second or third week into January. And the idea is, even though we aren't all getting together for one of these big kind of mega battle type things or just standard battles, if you can try to meet up with one of the guys in the league and get one league battle in during the course of the break, and then just you type in your results to like our league Discord basically. So I did manage to get my game in with the Orcs and Goblin player after this mega battle. He was hanging out for the weekend, and yeah, the day after we decided to get our league battle in. This didn't count for his league battle, as he's going to be hanging out with a bunch of the other guys in the league out of state where I'm living. So he figured he'd probably get a proper battle in against one of them later. So basically, he's just going to be doing a kind of catch up game for me. He won't have to roll on the injury charts or anything after this. However, I will, and everything that I'm doing in this battle will count. So, yeah, I have to take it a little bit more seriously than he will, basically. So, without further delay, let's get to the final battle report here. The Waffle Knights versus the Black Barons. I think at this point, we are looking at about 1,100-ish, maybe a little bit shy of 1,200 points in each of our armies here. Again, I think I have a couple extra points over the Orcs, just because I have a few more victories than them, but our armies are pretty similar in terms of cost. So anyways, my opponent won the roll for getting the first turn. He also got the roll for picking table sides. He's going to take the top side of this board, and I am going to take the southern side of our now snowy board here. I like this side, to be honest with you. I got that tower to the right of me. He also had a tower on his side, and both of us decided to put war machines in the tower. Unfortunately, my little halfling short bows are too short a range to really justify occupying that tower. I figured they're going to have to do a little bit of hustling around during this game. But yeah, he does have two Doom Divers, as I mentioned in the prior battle report, as well as like a little bit of short bows on the Goblin units he has, and I think they have normal bows or maybe short bows as well on each of his chariots. So it's not crazy range advantage, but he does definitely have it. I like the defensive nature of my side in terms of the right side of the board, but when I look at the left side of the board, it's a little bit more open, and I can't really just sit here and get barraged by Doom Divers. He was even commenting on it. Oh, this is going to be one of the few games I got the range advantage, Cam. Ha ha ha. So, yeah, he knew I was going to have to start hustling towards his side of the board, and my plan was to basically entrench the pantry guard behind the fence, hope that I could agitate him enough to provoke some of his units to move forward on that side. And in terms of where I'm actually going to be advancing and starting the pressure, it'll all be on the other side, the left side of the board. I've got my cav units set up over there, and I've got my short bow archer units set up, as well as the steam tank. And yeah, they're all going to be scooting up, trying to harass and provoke the orcs and goblins to move forward. And you never know, I might get lucky on some animosity rolls, which I actually got a little picture there. On turn one, he got incredibly unlucky, you could say, with 2 or 3 animosities being triggered. However, he does have a black orc war boss, and basically he's able to just stomp some heads in and club a couple of orcs and quell the animosity. He does take some early losses because of this, but yeah, I think that was a little bit lucky. His Doom Divers and the rest of his artillery is on point in terms of range efficiency during the first couple of turns. Picks off 4 Pantry Guard with one of his Doom Divers, and I think the other one just gets a couple of my archers in the middle area. So, first turn going pretty well for the Orcs and Goblins. He does have a Wizard, which has the Hand of Gork ability. He's not going to use it during the first turn or two, but he will be using that later on. When we go back to my turn, I kind of do what I said. I start advancing forward. My little hound riders with the short bows and spears start agitating this boar chariot on the far left side, and eventually I'm going to provoke him into charge range. And I'll be honest, on paper I was a little nervous about it, but the dice gods were with those hounds, and I'll actually win that combat or end of turn 2, or maybe start of turn 3. We don't win it right on the charge. I have to go 2 rounds against that thing. Other than that, the Knights of the Waffle House are going to be getting into their first combat pretty soon. They move up to charge distance of the Goblin block and take a couple of short bow arrow shots, but nothing too significant yet. The Halfling Hut Pot, it misfires on the first turn and can't shoot. Yay. It's a tradition with this thing, I swear. Something else rather spicy that happens, I believe at the start of turn 2, but I might have been wrong and it actually happened turn 1, was my opponent cast Hand of Gork on his Goblin Archer unit. I like this number 1 because it gets him close in range. I don't like it because it kind of forfeits his range advantage and puts him closer to me. But the other thing I like about it is that unit has 2 Fanatics hidden inside of it. So he moves it up and plops it right within range of my steam tank that, as I mentioned again in the prior battle report, has that quick thinker, gets the 8-inch vanguard maneuver at the start. It was spearheading my assault on the left side. So long story short, what ends up happening is I'm like threading this gap. One of them ended up a little bit short of the steam tank. The other one went right through. I got lucky though and passed no, I didn't pass any. I don't think you get armor saves on it. Sorry. He just didn't get any wounds on me. So that was a little bit fortunate. But yeah, my steam tank's stuck in a rock in a hard place right now. What I'll do is when it's my turn, kind of maneuver the steam tank a bit to the right. Get it out of the way of my archers who can take some clear shots at the fanatics. And yeah, you could say it's a bit of a waste, but I have 2 full units of archers just unload into those fanatics and get them off the board during my turn. And they pretty much absorb a whole halfling barrage of shooting, but I think it was worth it. As I already mentioned, I was setting up a nice little charge with my Knights of the Waffle House on that unit of goblins, and now that the fanatics are kind of clear of their charge path, they're going to go right in. And this was kind of one of the surprising things of this game. Maybe I'm just looking at it a little bit too optimistically on paper, but I've got 10 knights there, right? They've only got strength 3, weapon skill 3 on the charge, but their spears will give them +1 strength. Their mounts get +1 strength on the charge as well, meaning I've got 2 sets of strength 4 attacks in the front rank. The back rank's giving a set of strength 4 attacks as well, minus the mounts. Like, my point is I got like about 15 strength 4 attacks going in at these goblins. Yeah, I'm not going to hit with all of them, but I'm wounding pretty easily. And I guess the problem is I looked at it a little bit too optimistically in terms of that damage output and reducing his steadfast, because at the end of the day, that's the big problem. I don't really break his steadfast, and he actually kills maybe 1 or 2 of my knights in retaliation, either from the stand and shoot or just from the close combat itself. So, not the best combat in the world. I do win the first round, but it's looking like I'm going to be actually stuck there for a bit because the mounts lose their strength 4 bonus and the riders lose their strength 4 bonus after the first round of the combat. So, yeah. What'll end up happening is, though, I mentioned those hound riders further to the left of them are engaged with a boar chariot. After they win that combat, I decide things were looking a little too bleak in that combat versus the goblins, and have them do a little repositioning, and they will charge into the flank of that goblin unit, and that'll be enough to clear it up. That'll be a turn or 2 later, though. So the knights have to hold strong for a little bit, and they'll lose a couple more guys. I think they're down to about 6 after all is said and done. It's either turn 2 or turn 3 that we finally catch a break against these dang goblin doom divers. One of them lands a shot, but he rolls a pitiful 1 and only kills 1 pantry guard. The other one scatters, I think it was an 8 or a 10, and it was just like far off to the right of the unit. Nothing was going on over there. So, yeah, really minimal results on the doom diver. And then on the following turn, he finally rolls a misfire on one of them. The other one scattered and didn't land a shot again, so he had two bad turns of shooting. And what happened with the one with the misfire? It was the one in the tower, and it basically shot in a straight line towards my guys and ends up hitting one of his own chariots. Doesn't kill it, but it does two wounds, and I think it was an orc chariot, so a little bit more valuable. That was a good bit of fortune for us, especially given I don't even have artillery at this point. The last thing that the orcs and goblins are going to do during their turn is cast the Hand of Gork spell on his main unit of black orcs and the war boss. This, you could say, was kind of the game decision here. The spell goes off, and he puts them right on the flank of the pantry guard. There's a problem, though. Pantry guard are completely surrounded by a fence line. And it obviously he can't charge right now, so I'm going to be able to reposition when it's my turn and brace for that charge and have a defensive fence against them. For those who have been keeping up in the league, this will be the third time this battle has occurred where the pantry guard have a defensive fence and they are facing the full force of this black orc charge. Will they be able to survive? Find out. So when we go back to my turn, I have a spicy maneuver occur. My steam tank is going to charge right into the flank of that chariot that it's near. I believe that one is the one that's at full health. And then the kind of gray one there that hasn't been spray painted yet is the wounded one. That one is going to get shot down by both those archer units and my unit of vigilante to the right of them that also have short bows, the ones that are positioned on the fence there. So the steam tank charges in, makes the charge, rolls a 6 for its impact hit. I think it's like strength 5. Just plows right through the side of that chariot. I roll on the overrun, maximum distance. Unfortunately, I was literally like half an inch, a couple millimeters shy of making an overrun charge into his orc arrow boys. Yeah. But I mean, that's not a bad spot to be, and I don't know if they're gonna necessarily want to charge right into me. So we'll have to see what happens there. But before we get to that, I will say the pantry guard do exactly what I said. They do a reposition, get ready to face the black orcs, and I will say that that's probably going to be the combat that will determine the game right here and right now. So the first thing he does is decides to challenge my unit pantry guard with his black orc war boss, and he personally calls out Village Elder O'Connell, the leader of my army. And, I mean, why not? He doesn't have anything to lose. He doesn't have to roll on the injury chart. I'm the one that's going to have to. And I'm weighing it on my conscience. I know I'm winning this battle by a good little bit. And I'm like, all right, fine, screw it. I did get a level up for one extra wound before the battle. So I was feeling a little bit confident, you could say. I also have the defensive fence. We accept the challenge, but my opponent's like, we're going to do that at the end. And let's do the actual combat first. So all of his black orcs swing. However, they've got defensive fence in the way, as I've said a couple times now. So he's hitting me on 3s. Because of the fence, I believe he's hitting me on 4s. It's not the best in the world, unfortunately. I think he cleaves down 4 more pantry guard. I still have almost a full front rank hitting him. And yeah, the retaliation's pretty swift. Again, I've got strength 6 attacks. Something I haven't mentioned is I have a master chef in that unit, and he can basically give my unit a buff. And the one that I'm using is to re-roll misses, or sorry, failed to wound during close combat, not misses. So yeah, I'm hitting him on 4s, and I'm wounding him on 2s, and any of those unlucky ones, I get to re-roll them. And strength 6, that's 4, 5, so -3 to his armor save. He's, I think, using additional hand weapons, so he's not getting a save. Even if he used shields, I don't think he would get a save. He'd get a parry, that's about it. And yeah, it's pretty rough for him. I think the whole unit isn't necessarily cleaved down as the photo here might suggest, but it was pretty savage, and I think he retreated afterwards, and I managed to catch and kill the unit. But we call the game after that. In terms of the duel, Village Elder O'Connell is scraped by the Black Orc war boss and takes 1 wound, but The retaliation was rather swift. He took exactly 2 wounds, and my opponent conceded the battle there and said, "Good game." And it was a solid victory for the Halflings. We'll never know if those Hound Riders would have been able to delay or get a couple of wounds in on those biggins on the far side, or if my steam tank was going to catch those archers. Unfortunately, the orcs routed right then. So, fair enough, but very funny game. It was a lot of fun. My opponent said Village Elder O'Connell got the MVP for slaying the Black Orc War Boss and having the honor to step forward in that duel, even though he was behind a defensive fence. But yeah, good fun, and I can't say I was too surprised that I've gone 3-0 against those Black Orcs with like a nice positioning like that. So it is what it is. I think they're quite vulnerable to range attacks or just mass volumes of melee attacks, not necessarily high quality ones either. They only have a 6-up save because of light armor. And they did get a level up in our campaign to allow them to have a 6-up parry save, kind of like a high elf with the greatsword. That's not something they normally get, but yeah, their defense is pretty poor. They're very vulnerable to range and just mass quantity of range melee attacks. It kind of noticed that these elite units seem to get chopped down by the Pantry Guard consistently in the league so far. So that's going to wrap up this final battle report here, folks. I'm going to leave you with an updated score sheet here with all the stats post that mega battle. Obviously, I've gotten one more game in than everyone else here because me and the Orc player, like I mentioned, got this battle in right after the mega battle the day after. But everyone's going to be getting the game that I just got in over the course of this month when we take this break, and I will be sure to update all the sheets in the next video regarding the Kaiju League. Looking forward to making that, and if I don't have any other content out before the holiday season fully comes in, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, and really genuinely mean that. I hope everything is stress free and you're able to take some time to breathe and enjoy the season and the holiday and all that stuff. We often talk about tabletops and everything here, but it is important to enjoy your loved ones and family and all that stuff whenever you get the chance, and this is the time for that. So make sure you all get a little bit of time to do all of that and have a great day. All right? Bye-bye.